In this segment, we're going to complete the assembly of the system. We've actually fully assembled and built the system physically, but now we have to do the software configuration and operating system installation. Now, the first thing we're going to do is to start up the system, make sure that it works, and then go into the BIOS setup. Now, one problem with newer machines is that they are equipped with something called a rapid BIOS boot. This is something that's part of the PC 2001 standard, which is set forth by Microsoft and Intel. And what this means is that the system will go from the point that you turn it on to loading the operating system in under 7 seconds. Now, that doesn't give you very much time to hit whatever key is required to activate the BIOS setup. Now, in this particular system, using an AMI BIOS with an Intel motherboard, the key that we need to hit to activate the BIOS setup is the F2 key. So I'm going to turn the system on first and see what happens if we don't hit the key. We'll show you the screens that you'll see, and then we're going to restart the system, and we'll see what happens when we actually hit that key. Now, I'm going to power it up right now. Now, as it's powering up, I'm going to hit the pause key to stop it. At this point, the system is just a few seconds into the power on, and you can see our sign-on message for the BIOS on our video card. This is an NVIDIA GeForce 2 MX200 VGA BIOS is what it says on the screen. And that's the sign-on message from the ROM on the video card. Normally that would just flash up there for a few seconds. I hit the pause key on the keyboard in order to freeze that on the display. That, by the way, is a nice tip. If things are flashing by on the display as the system is starting up, you can use the pause key to freeze it so you can read what's going on. Now, if I hit the space bar, that will unpause the system and it will continue to boot. At this point, we'll see the motherboard splash screen, they call it, which is the screen that is the logo of whoever manufactured the motherboard. With many boards these days, you can put your own logo into the BIOS using a utility provided by the motherboard manufacturer. For example, I could put the logo of my own company such that every time I turn the system on, that would come up. Now, that logo is essentially then burned into the motherboard ROM via, with the utility provided by the motherboard manufacturer. Many of the manufacturers provide that these days. Now, you can look on the screen and see the message, boot failure, system halted. Now, this is an AMI BIOS message indicating that it was unable to find any bootable partitions on the hard drive. Well, that would be the case because this is a brand new hard drive that has been freshly installed. In fact, we're not even sure that the drive is configured properly because we haven't gone into the BIOS setup and checked that yet. So, seeing a message like this the first time is no problem at all. That's exactly what you expect when you're first starting up a system. Now, older AMI BIOS would say something like no ROM basic, system halted. The newer ones have changed the message to boot failure, which is actually a little bit more accurate. So what I'm going to do right now is to restart the system by typing the Control-Alt-Delete key sequence. And then I'm going to hold down the F2 key as soon as I see the sign-on message from the video card there. And at this point, we should go into the BIOS setup. And there we are in the BIOS setup utility, as you can see. Now, using the screens here, I can verify things that, such as the processor installation. Here it says Intel Pentium 4, 1.8 gigahertz processor. This is the newer version called the Northwood, which has 512K of L2 cache. You can see on the screen there. Also, we do have 128 megabytes of the DDR266, which is also called PC2100 DDR SDRAM installed. That's correct. That is what we did install. I'm going to move over to the Advanced menu and then drop down to the IDE configuration screen to check the drive configuration. And it does show we have a primary master, which is our Western Digital hard disk. We also have a secondary master, which is our DVD-ROM drive. So the drives seem to be detected properly. I'm going to go into the first one, which is the primary master, and that's our hard drive. Now notice the setting is auto for type, and that's what I do recommend. You should set all of your drive types to auto. The modern BIOS will properly detect the drive parameters and utilize the drive to its fullest capabilities. For example, here I can see that it has set Ultra GMA Mode 5, which is the 100 megabyte per second transfer rate, and that is the maximum that the drive can handle as well as the motherboard, so that's correct. And it also has detected the 80 conductor cable. So those settings are indeed proper for the drive. 99 out of 100 times you should be making or using an auto setting for the type on the drive. Very rarely should you ever use the user-defined and set the parameters yourself. Okay, I'm going to hit escape to back up here. Now, in our quest to load the operating system, we have basically two choices as far as the boot up media. We can't boot off the hard drive right now. We have nothing on it. So what we need to do is either boot off of a floppy drive or a CD. Now, all of the Windows operating systems since Windows 98, at least in the OEM versions, the versions that are designed to come with a new computer, those are equipped with supplied on a bootable CD. That means you can actually just boot the system directly from the CD-ROM. You don't need a floppy drive, that's bootable, or a floppy disk that's bootable. Now, if you purchase one of the retail versions, or especially the upgrade version, in that case you may have to boot from a floppy in order to get this the operating system installed. Now, in my case, I have a version of Windows XP here, and this one is bootable from the CD. So we need to make sure that the system is configured to boot from the CD-ROM drive. By default, all systems would be configured to boot first from the floppy drive and then the hard drive, and that's it. So if I put the CD in the drive now, it will not even check that drive for a bootable disk. So we need to check that or change that in the BIOS setup. I'm going to hit escape and go over here to the boot menu, and I'm going to slide down here to where it says boot device priority. And I'm going to check that setting, and as you can see, the first boot device is removable device, which in this case means floppy drive, and the second choice is hard drive. Now, what I want to do is change the second boot device to CD-ROM, and I can do that by hitting the plus key here, or plus and minus. I've now changed the second device to AT-API CD-ROM, and then the third device I'm going to change to the hard drive. And let me do that. I'm going to hit enter and select hard drive for the third device. So now our boot sequence is going to check the floppy drive first, it's going to check the CD-ROM drive second, and the hard drive third. We're going to have a bootable CD, so when it hits the second device, the CD-ROM in this case, we should be able to boot off of it. So before I save and exit this, I'm going to actually open the drive and install the CD for Windows XP. And now I'm going to proceed to the exit menu, and I'm going to exit saving changes, save configuration changes, and exit yes. And at this point, the system should restart, and it will boot off of the CD-ROM drive. Okay, I can see the message setup is inspecting our system settings. So it is in fact now booting off of the drive, and we're now in the Windows setup screen. Setup should recognize the fact that we have an unformatted, unpartitioned hard drive, and will simply offer to configure or partition the drive. Installing these newer versions of Windows on a blank drive, really couldn't be easier. If you start with the bootable CD, all you have to do is make sure your system is set to boot from the CD, put the CD in the drive, and with a blank hard drive, simply run the setup utility if it doesn't automatically run for you, which in most cases it will. And then that will walk you through the partitioning steps, the formatting of the partitions, and then the actual installation of the operating system. Now, Windows XP has quite a few different drivers and things to load, which is what it's doing now. I'm seeing various messages on the bottom of the screen about different drivers being loaded as it's detecting hardware within the system. We'll wait while it continues to load these drivers until we get a menu. Okay, here we are at the opening setup menu, and basically the choices are to set up Windows XP now, press enter, and that's in fact what I want to do. This is XP Professional that we're loading here. There's the license agreement, which you're supposed to read, and F8 key, I agree. Okay, at this point it has detected the drive, and it is listing the unpartitioned space on the drive. It says to set up Windows XP on the selected item, press enter. To create a partition in the unpartitioned space, press C, or to delete the selected partition, press D. Well, we don't have any partitions, so I'm going to create a partition in the unpartitioned space by pressing C. And it is offering a size for the partition. Minimum size of 8 megabytes, maximum size of 28,616. I'm going to go for the maximum size. And at that point, it has now created the partition. And I can now install Windows XP on the selected item, press Enter. It is offering us 4 choices for installation here. Basically, I can install using the NTFS, which is the NT file system, or the FAT file allocation table filing system. I can either do either of those in a quick version or an extended version. The difference being that the quick version does not do a detailed scan of the disk for bad sectors. In the interest of saving time here, I'm going to do the quick version. If it's legitimately a brand new drive, you have no experience with it, you might want to do the lengthier version, which will scan the entire drive for bad sectors. I'm going to say NTFS file system quick. And at that point, it begins the formatting process, which shouldn't take very long because I did choose the quick option. At this point, from here on out, it's simply going through, the menus, using the menus to guide you through the process of the installation of XP. It would work very much in a similar fashion whether I was installing Windows 2000, Windows ME, or Windows 98. Simply follow the choices that you're offered. Complete the installation of the operating system. Right after installing the operating system, you should check to see if your motherboard came with the CD with chipset and other drivers on it. You'll want to install that first. Then, immediately after installing the motherboard drivers, then you'd probably want to install your video card drivers, and then any other drivers such as network cards or other devices that you've installed in the system. Basically, after completing the installation of all of those drivers, you would then have a fully functional system with the operating system and all of the drivers loaded.